discuss the deals, the plays, and the drama in the Kenyan political scene. So welcome to the Civic Lens for yet another weekly recap. How are you, Saruni?
Very fine. How are you, my brother?
I'm good.
Good to see you again.
After a whole week.
Yeah.
Nice suit, man.
Pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine.
Money must be flowing. We have been bored in this other part. So let's start. Last week, when we were closing off, we closed off with the story of Sakaja. I think you remember this. And Mr. AJ confirmed for us that even that Sakaja was going to survive. When we got home, Sakaja survived. So why did your party leader see the need to save Sakaja?
You know, that was obvious. It was obvious. It is a lot of political intrigue that is in play. We know Nairobi is a cosmopolitan city, and this city is not only for Sakaja to ensure that its welfare is realized. Nairobi, you know, there are proponents who say that we need actually to make Nairobi more of a ministerial city, as opposed to have it as one of the counties where a governor is elected to lead it. Because it has a lot to bring on the table in terms of governance, the geopolitics, among other factors. So what happened is that even the president, when you want to bring Nairobi to standstill through impeachment so that we won't have the substantive governor, or during which the substantive governor is going to the Senate to defend himself or trying to prove what he did or what he did not, obviously that will be felt. It will have what we call a ripple effect, both to the executive, at the national government, and even in terms of service delivery to the people of Nairobi. So Raila Odinga is always wise to preempt such kind of occurrences. And this time they joined hands with the president to save Sakaja. For me, I believe it was timeless and it was appropriate to do so.
Wakili Saroni, AJ has given us a good outline because I think even sometimes back when Songo handed over Nairobi to the national government, it was given to a gentleman called Mbadi. But with the current arrangement, do you think that Raila Odinga and William Ruto saved Sakaja, or did they save themselves and the broad-based government with the impeachment motion being stopped at that level?
Well, that is one of the most unfortunate things that we experienced the past week. Because there is no way you can condone incompetence. Nairobi has become a very dirty city. There is nothing that is working in Nairobi. The sewer system is a mess. Garbage collection system is a mess. Nairobi has become a cash cow for the leadership of the county, and by extension, the people who are supporting him. So we are feeling very worried to see the two amazing gentlemen going hand in hand to support one Sakaja. Because there is no need of supporting someone who has failed. When you do that, by extension, you're attaching that failure to yourself.
To yourself, also becoming part of the fail.
Yes.
And you see, this part of the fail is very important that you brought it, Saroni, because the president just accused the parliament the other day of being corrupt. And then Sakaja was likely to be impeached because of corruption, and the president saved him. How does that play with the image of the president from now the Democratic Party angle?
Well, it's a mess. The image of the president is a mess, as it has always been for the past 3 years. Because this is a man who has been trying to run the government using PR. And when PR backfires on him, he decides to use the chest. And what we saw the other day was a failure on his part. Because as much as you want to say that other people are corrupt, you need to look at yourself. How do you relate and associate with those people who are corrupt? I would have expected the president to be very diligent and to allow the law to take its course. Yes. But by interfering with the independence of the County Assembly of Nairobi, that shows that really this is someone who wants to micromanage the government, micromanage devolved units of government, and that is just a mess.
Wakili Sarun is blaming the government, and specifically the president, for micromanaging. And the same thing was in the papers today, in the Daily Nation, with the task force that the government is been creating, and specifically the president. The Daily Nation today was alluding that President Ruto has created over 10 task forces since he came into force, and most of them did not see the light of the day. Here, Saruni has blamed the president for micromanaging, for using theatrics and jest. The people of Kenya is blaming the government for task forces. But before that, Faith Odhiambo and the Rungu Poston's appointment from a lawyer's point of view.
Well, perhaps you allow me to
Yes, to judge.
have a right of rejoinder regarding what my learned counsel has spoken about. You know, in a democracy, and not even democracy, in any legal setup, impeachment cannot be the first and last resort at the same time. It cannot be the first, call that the MCS must go to so that we solve some of the matters that we see. When the president called the UDM MCS and His Excellency Raila Odinga called the ODM MCS, the whole purpose and the objective was to find alternative dispute resolution mechanisms that could help the county to ensure that the people of Nairobi continue getting services, as opposed to going straight to impeachment. So before you go to impeachment, there are other avenues that could be, explored to save the governor and at the same time make the people of Nairobi and even the MCS better off. That is basically what the president did. That is what Raila Odinga did. So I don't agree with those people who are doing what I would term as fault finding. They try to look at the action of Raila Odinga, the action of president, and call it hypocrisy or trying to be an accomplice to whatever that was happening at the county. Because some of these things were quite trivial. They were not substantive issues that could see the light of the day had they gone through the normal impeachment process. So that informed that. Now, you've asked me two questions.
Yes.
First is on the presidential proclamations, formation of task forces that the president comes up with, and whether the same are actually seeing the light of the day. I can't say with precision how many task forces that the president has established so far, but I think the one that is currently in fierce discussion is the one that led to the establishment of the victim compensation, where now our LSK president, Madam Faith Odhiambo, was asked to come in and support, be a member. As a lawyer, I would first have to say that the president has to be advised correctly by the legal counsel that is around the president on what is constitutional, especially coming up with this particular task forces. If you go and read Article 131 and I believe Article 132, which defines the role of president and the extent and the scope of his function, the president, of course, has powers to make what we call proclamations when he deems fit and geared towards the bigger objective of what the presidency defines. So if he comes up with a task force which is not in consonance with what the law says, then the people of Kenya, we are very proactive petitioners in this country. They will go to the High Court and have the same set aside, which has so far taken place. But what I want to say is that this matter is before the court, and let us leave the court make a determination on it as to whether it was constitutional or not. But if you want my opinion on it.
Before we talk of the Faith Odhiambo specifically,
Yes.
I think I really value the aspects that you have brought to the task forces of the government. And you have highlighted it separately, that this one that is in contestation is separate from the other task force that William Ruto has created under his tenure. What do you have to say, Saruni, of the task forces that Ruto has created since he came to power?
Well, I want to appreciate the task force for one reason. They are assisting us in painting the same picture of that same man. This is a man who we have come to understood is only interested with PR. And so when we see task forces coming up, especially immediately after there is something that has happened, we know that this is a man who is doing that to cool the ground, to try and build an image of someone who is reasonable and who listens. We saw the other task force on auditing the public debts that was formed immediately after the 2024 Gen Z demonstrations. And at that point, the president appointed Faith Odhiambo. And he did it deliberately because of the image that Faith Odhiambo had portrayed and the shape that she had taken in terms of protecting the rights of demonstrations, protecting the demonstrators, and even appearing to be part of the demonstrators on her own. So the president just wants to use the image of Faith to whitewash his own image or to play a role that shows that he is an individual who listens.
I'm coming back to Faith Odhiambo extensively, and you're still on this task force, but let me first put it straight here, the Civic Lense, what we're talking about. Ruto took power in 2022. Shortly after he took power in the same year in 2022, the September of that year, Ruto formed the first task force. The first task force was the gender-based violence task force, and it was gender-based violence and femicide. Let me get this right. The gender-based violence and femicide task force that was chaired by Nancy Baraza, the former deputy chief justice. This task force had 34 members, and it was supposed to deliver its mandate within 90 days. Shortly after that, Ruto also formed another task force that had CJ Maraga in it. This was the Police and Prisons Reforms Task Force. This was shortly declared unconstitutional. After that, Ruto went ahead and formed the 8-person task force for Shakahola that had the chairmanship of DSC Presit, a judge of an honorable court. This was also declared unconstitutional. We also saw the task force on human resource in health, which was also declared inconsistent with the Health Act. Now, this pattern that Ruto has been creating, that if a task force has an iota of doubt in it, then he pulls an individual from the judiciary to sit in that task force. When Maraga was sitting in the police reform task force, it was declared unconstitutional. Of course, Ajura, you cannot say that Maraga, a chief justice, an individual who has attained that qualification within the profession, does not understand the law and can chair a task force that he knows from the very onset is unconstitutional. So what is really this move of using personalities in task forces?
Of course, that one I can't say, conclusively that the president has the tendency of bringing personalities from different departments of government or from independent offices to, in a way, try to make them not be heard
Or sanitize the image.
or to sanitize the image of the presidency of the president himself. If you look at most of them, to me they appear like they are well-intentioned, except that they are not properly screened against the test of constitutionality or lack of it. And this is why, like I said, Kenyans are very, very diligent and they are aggressive. They know the constitution from the preamble to the last chapter of it. So when you do something that does not, that is not symphonous with what the constitution says, then obviously they will go to the High Court, to a constitutional court, have the same interpreted and annulled if need be. And that again demonstrates how a mature democracy we are as a country. That a president can actually come up with a task force screened against our own constitutional provisions, and if found inconsistent, the same is annulled or declared as such. So for me, I say that, the president or whoever is advising the president may want for one reason or another to bring these people with a better or good intention of trying to change the lives of the people of Kenya. But then we have a gate pass, and that gate pass is the constitution. So the people of Kenya are free to exercise that constitutional right in ventilating presidential decisions against what the law provides.
Well, Ogola, I'm trying to look at the fulfillment and actualization of the recommendations of this task force. And if we are to use that scale to really want to understand the objectives of the president's objectives of formulating those task force, we'll just get to understand that he's trying to keep people busy. Because we have the NADCO report that has been accumulating dust in his shelf somewhere. We have all those other task forces with the reports. But none of those reports have actually been implemented.
You know, that's a very important topic. That's what I really wanted us to talk about with these task forces. You see, Ajura, the task force that was created for gender-based violence and femicide under Nancy Bagaza submitted a report after 90 days. Pardon me. And after that 90 days, there was no implementation that followed. The following task force that was chaired by Professor Munap on CBC, the competent-based curriculum, was tasked to write a report after 120 days. They wrote the report after 120 days, and as you rightly say, still on dust. These other task force that we have seen either have not submitted the report or is performing a function that duplicates a role that is created within the Constitution. So why really do we need these task forces? But that aside, as these two brilliant minds are dealing with that in the next bit of this episode, we also want to look at these two individuals' kingdom. During the 25th June 2024 demonstrations and the 25th June 2025 demonstrations, Kenyans' hope was stemmed on two key personalities. One of them was Faith Odhiambo, the current president of the Law Society of Kenya, who single-handedly released a lot of youths who were arrested and detained in police cells. Another individual was Irungu Hoston, the CEO and director of Amnesty International Kenyan Chapter, an organization that has been known to fight for human rights for time immemorial. Now, the task force under the leadership of Makau Mutu has now solicited the interest and the expertise of Irungu Hoston and Faith Odhiambo. In the second ambit of this discussion, I want to discuss with these two lawyers the effect of taking the president of the Law Society of Kenya as an expert within a government task force. Saru.
That's a very good topic to raise because, well, the president of the Law Society of Kenya should be like Caesar's wife, beyond reproach, beyond suspicion. So when you see the president of the Law Society of Kenya sitting down with the president and agreeing to work on something that has not gone through the courts, that something that is unconstitutional because that is the case that is in court, you start to get suspicion of her intentions. And it would have been better if she would have stepped aside or rejected that appointment. Because when the president of Law Society of Kenya is sitting down with the president of the country, who will then be there to protect the citizens when the president of the country decides to use means that will harm the citizens of the country? Over the years, we have seen the president of LSK taking very prominent and bold stance, championing for the interest of all Kenyans. And it would have been better, I submit, if she would have watched, sat on the sidelines, watched, and decided to come in when she feels things are not right. Because absolutely, where we are heading, things will not be right.
Ajuna, why did Faith accept this appointment from your lenses?
Well, from my lenses, you know, you just referred us back to what happened during the Gen Z moment demonstration. And we all know that even during the Gen Z and even pre the Gen Z demonstration. In fact, way back from 2007 to date, we've had so many victims of post-election violence, victims of extrajudicial killings that happened in this country. And we're not going to pin this and say that it is President Ruto who has played a role in this. We've had a president. 2007, it was not President Ruto. When we came to 2013 to 2022, again, it was not President Ruto. There were other individuals in power. But we could still see these vices taking place in this country against our own laws that some of these people in the presidency sought to protect. Now, we all agree that justice is not only about, going to a court of law and having the court pronounce your right, and then you are compensated out of that angle. You can still find a way in which the victims can be compensated through a program or through a well-intentioned government. And I believe this is what President Ruto wanted to achieve. Now, the issue of Faith Odhiambo, our president, then kicks in. She's been appointed, but the whole thing that she kept on agitating for was to find a way in which the victims of post-election violence could be compensated. So I don't think it would be prudent for us to, go beyond the objective test and try to bring in technicality and certain strictures of the law, or because of the position an individual holds, to try to tie the interest of the nation as well as the interest of the victims of post-election violence. So for me, I support Faith in terms of the decision that she made to be in that task force, because at the end of the day, by being there, Faith Odhiambo has been known as one person. He just mentioned that being the LSK president is like being the Caesar's wife, and then you are supposed to live beyond suspicion. I agree. The same principle would apply with Faith Odhiambo's involvement in the compensation process, so that we'll be able to detect and discern accountability and ensure that at the end of the day, with a presence in that particular task force, accountability is achieved. Transparency is achieved. And if there is anything that the government would want to hide, I think having Faith Odhiambo would then bring the much needed public confidence.
Faith Odhiambo and Irungu Houston are individual that we have immeasurable respect for, and we hope that when this appointment goes on and they accept it as they are, then their role within this appointment needs to reflect the reputation that the Kenyan people have on them. However, history do not lie. The same thing that Faith Odhiambo is going through right now with President William Ruto is the same thing that Tom Mboya went through with Jomo Kenyatta. Having been head of trade unions and championed for independence using trade unions, when the presidency came into power, the first ministry was given was the labor ministry, so that the voices that he was detesting now became the voices that were detesting him. And if Faith Odhiambo is not really keen, this could be the move by President William Ruto to tie her, so that the voices that she was defending becomes the voices that chases her. We put a stop to Faith Odhiambo and the appointment of task forces, and we want to narrow our lenses now to the united opposition. Gachagua self-declared. How does that work for the united opposition right now that you are an acting Deputy Secretary General for the Democratic Party?
Well, that is a good question, because of course Gachagua has his own rights. Rigiji has his own rights and to run and be elected as the next president of Kenya, and so does any other principal. We have 6 principals. We have Rigiji, we have Martha Karua, we have Kalonzo Musyoka, we have Matiang'i, we have JB Moturi, and Eugene Wamalwa. All these individuals qualify to be the next president of the Republic of Kenya. And for Rigiji to state publicly that he is interested and he wants to be the president, that is good, because so does any other principal. And at the end of the day, you want to appreciate the fact that they have agreed that they will find a formula that they will use to bring and field one candidate for the opposition. So right now, it is okay for any of the principals to say that they want the top seat, but at the end of the day, they have agreed to work together so that they can bring one person.
Is the prophesied showdown within the United Opposition finally here, now that they appointed Kisa Kitui to be their voice spokesperson? And shortly after, Rigathi Gachagua went against the Secretariat and self-declared. Are we seeing the fall finally?
There is what we call the Darwin's evolutionary theory,
Survival for the people.
which would tell you there are moments for old niche or moments that the old niche would disappear and a new niche would appear. And that is basically what we are witnessing in this country. And you know, the niches that I'm talking about in this respect are political interests that we have. The political interest in this country, you know, there is also a saying that says that one day in politics could be better than 10 or a year in politics, because it underscores, you know, the importance, or rather the weight of political decision that an individual makes in a day, and the far-reaching consequence that it is likely to bear. Now, these people, my friend Saruni calls them principles. Quite interesting. If you narrow down who these people are and you want to now characterize them, you look at Rigathi Gachagua, you look at Martha Karua, you know, you have a look at Matiang'i and etc. I can tell you without a doubt that these people will not reach 2027 together as you're seeing them now. They're not going to reach, because you just saw there is a spokesperson that has been appointed, and then there are also doubts about his appointment. Really, would that make sense? That we sit as gentlemen, we make resolution that let us appoint Saruni to be our spokesperson, and in the next door, one of us is impugning his appointment as the spokesperson. The same way, we sit together and say, when the right time comes, we are going to decide on who will carry our presidential flag. But again, in the next door, another person makes a declaration. It tells you about the inconsistencies that is in those discussion boardroom talks. And this is a delicate balance which bears geopolitical equilibrium. If mishandled, it is going to put these people into tatter. Because I know, if you look at these people, Kalonzo Musyoka prides himself on being the most senior and having been the vice president. And he believes that he has always had the dream of becoming president, except that in 3 occasions he has always supported Raila Odinga. So in terms of seniority, he would want to be the person to be seen as the front runner. If you look at Gachagua, who again sells himself as now the new sheriff in town.
Mountain keeper.
The mountain keeper, and who believes that no one would actually make it in the mountain except passing through him, which again would want that, okay, let the entire team support me because I have the Mount Kenya behind me. Then there are those other ones who are just being carried along, because I don't see anything substantial to talk about them. Because politics is about number. You know, when people go to the ballot to vote, in as much we are saying we're not going to talk about number, it is all statistics. We go to the ballot, we are looking at how many people are going to the voting booth to put in their votes.
And this numbers actually is what gives Gachagua confidence.
Yes, so numbers give Gachagua confidence, and to some extent it gives Kalonzo confidence. Because let us give them credit where it is due. These people to some extent have galvanized areas where they come from. Because first politics is local before it becomes national. But there are people who are not favored both at the local and at the national level. And still, they still have the dream to become president and think that at the end of the day, these people are going to second them.
So I interrupted you there for a minute, pardon me, but I wanted to talk about numbers that you highlighted, and you said that Gachagua is banking on his numbers. The same way Kalonzo is banking on his numbers. But Matiang'i, if you remember a little bit back, when Matiang'i was joining the politics now again, when he came back from abroad, when he came back before joining the United Opposition, if I remember well, he came as a result of the call from the Gen Zs for an alternative other than Ruto. So if you're talking about numbers and the United Opposition in that light, could we say that the young numbers could only rally behind Matiang'i within that entire spectrum?
You know, our democracy is not in the level of the US democracy. And we are not at the stage of idealism where we are now talking about ideas taking precedent in any electoral system, where we know that this is what Gen Zs were talking about, and they believe that Matiang'i is the best candidate to do it. I can tell you for a fact that at the end of the day, the Gen Z concept, that I see people talking about Gen Z, that Gen Z will have, will revolutionize the 2027 election. That is a hoax. It will not happen. I can tell you for a fact. Because at the end of the day, all these Gen Zs, they belong to particular tribes. They belong to particular political parties. And I can tell you that when the right time shall come, you will see them, some of them aligning themselves to their political cocoons, tribal cocoons, and then, using disparaging remarks against anyone who would want to go against them. So at the end of the day, the Gen Z is not a number that you are going to to rely on. Number two, this election that we are going to see in 2027, I want to predict it. It is going to be about handouts and the empowerment that you're seeing that has just started at State House. It will cascade downwards. And if you are a candidate that is going for MP position, governor position, or whichever position, this election that we are going to is about handouts and the empowerment. Because there is this notion, and it is now becoming common, that our stomach is listening more than our ears. So this is one thing that is going to affect these people at the end of the day.
Saruni, AJ has discredited two things that are very key to your heart. First, he has discredited the youth bloc revolutionizing the election of 2027. And this is close to your heart because you are the president of the Kenyan University Students Association as it stands right now. He has also discredited other members of the United Opposition, not alone being called principals, but even having the likelihood to come close to the presidency. This also is close to your heart because you are from the DP party that is, I believe, under Justin Muturi. So what is your response to this discredits that AJ has as a prediction of 2027?
Well, that is an interesting topic, and listening to my friend Akude, I am beginning to believe that he's living in a cocoon because if you look at the numbers, if you look at the age, if you look at the level of education of the young voters, of the Gen Z, the millennials, these are people who are very young, very well educated, and very focused. The only thing that is standing between them is opportunities. And I'm saying this with a lot of confidence. And looking at it, if you are to study change, you will note that change is always constant. We will always have change in this country. We will always have change in life. He started by stating that there is some tension that is geared towards the change of guard and things like that. And well, if that means the tension is there, it cuts across board, including affecting his principles and the president. It doesn't just affect the opposition, it affects across board. And looking at the second thing that my friend Akude talked about was about the individual statements on the Secretary General of the Secretariat in the opposition. Akude is from a party known as Orange Democratic Movement. And we have seen in the past they have held their meetings, NEC meetings, and the Secretary General will come out of that meeting and says that whatever was said there is part of the party stand. But I, as an individual, I have an individual stand, and he would publicly state his stand. So for my friend Akude to come and say that when people are sharing their individual remarks, it should be taken as a sign that the opposition is failing and falling, I want to disagree with that. On the youth voter, we saw 2024, whatever happened, 25th June 2024. There, in the history of the country, we have never seen or experienced any such thing. And for you to better understand the level of brilliance of this young Gen Z voter, you need to understand where they're coming from. And if you look at the year of our Lord 2007, this was an election year. We had a lot of violence. And at that time, the oldest Gen Z was 30 years of age. The oldest Gen Z was 10 years old in the year of our Lord 2007. So when a kid gets to experience violence firsthand, they experience their brothers, their neighbors, parents of their neighbors fighting against each other. I will tell you for a fact that they will ask questions, they have criticized the system, and now they are ready to shape the next country. So if you want to look down upon the young voters, I want to advise you to continue. For us in the opposition, we really appreciate the fact that those people in the government and in the broad-based government, they don't care about the Gen Z voters, because for us,
You're waiting to tap on that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
If you permit me,
Yeah, now that you are...
the other time we saw youths who attended the State House empowerment function. Who are they? They were Gen Zs. So I don't think someone should brag of having the bigger chunk of the Gen Zs. At the end of the day, and I say this, there will be a fair distribution of Gen Zs in all political divides. The ODM will have their Gen Zs, the UDA will have their Gen Zs, so is DCP. So nobody should come and lie that at the end of the day, we are going to have this unique, special voting bloc that is going to send the presidency home or going to put a particular person in power. Not there.
Not there. So, Saruni here is blaming the democracy in the party, that once you come to the neck...
Yes, also allow me to respond to that in this way. That if you read clearly the conduct of Sifuna, yes, Sifuna has disagreed with the party position as far as party's support to William Ruto in 2027 is concerned. But anything to do with the ODM internal democracies, the decision that the ODM makes as far as its governance is concerned, Sifuna has never differed with the party. He has always come out and said, I'm not part of the resolution that would say we are supporting Ruto in 2027. If you look at our MOU, you look at the recent deliberations that have been there, even the party leader has made it clear that we have no resolution as at now regarding who we are going to support in 2027. Okay, and it has been consistent with what Sifuna is saying. So that democracy is allowed, and I think even our party leader demonstrate that you can have your say as the party also has its say. Because if we go and let's say we restrain Sifuna in one way or another. And in politics, there are so many ways you can do that. Then it still will raise the question about the democracy of the party. So it is just fair to again give Orange Democratic Party its fair deal, yes.
Is the Gen Z group going to vote alongside their tribal lines come 2027, or are the Gen Zs going to vote as a bloc? Let us know in the comment section, because Ajura here believes that when 2027 comes, the Gen Zs will be distributed alongside their parties and tribal lines. Saruni here believes that the Gen Z could be a bloc that will rally behind one candidate come 2027. So let us know your thoughts. On to other stories. Honorable Griffin Saruku, currently the CS of the Public Service and Human Development, was the former MP of Mbeere, a gentleman with a very applauding and plausible CV, who have served in different platforms before, have served in different countries, and has even served in the Embassy of Israel here in Kenya before mounting himself into politics. Now, there is a gap in his constituency, and this gap is being contested by three big. One is Newton Karish, who is coming from the very party that Ruku left before joining the cabinet. Another is Leonard Muzloki from the UDA, defending the policies of the government at Mbeere North. And the third one is the gentleman that right now feels betrayed by the DCP party and is going independent, Dan Mbui. In this segment of the discussion, I want to discuss with these two gentlemen the effect of that political alignment in Mbeere North, and whether the united opposition is going to sacrifice one principle for the other to maintain that seat. I'll start with Saruni Jesse, who is the acting Deputy Secretary General of the Democratic Party that is fronting Karish for the Mbeere North constituency.
Thank you very much for that question. Well, first of all, I want to appreciate the character and personality of Karish. Karish is a very prominent guy. He has served as an MCA, and the work that he has done speaks for itself. So, looking at his aspiration to become the next member of parliament from Mbeere North, it is not informed by only his individual aspirations, but the aspirations of his constituents as well. People have felt that this is a guy who has really delivered, and they feel that now is about time that we reward this guy and give him more roles so that he can serve even at a higher level. In regards to the principal stake, I can see a lot of goodwill at that level of the opposition principals, because for them to just find the right balance and to appreciate the logic of science and to say that we will let this prominent candidate to run the election under a unified flag of the opposition, I feel that that expresses and shows us a lot of goodwill, and our aspirations as Kenyans moving forward are, we feel very encouraged to see that something like that can happen. So we actually take a lot of lessons from that, and we begin to believe that come the time of announcing a single president from the opposition, they will not have a lot of issues. They have shown that they can sit down and agree, and I think that is a good sign, and we believe that even for the topmost seat, they will sit down and agree.
Let me take it with Saruna a little bit before we hand it over to Echi here. You see, today before we did this, I was checking the post of Dan online, and he has actually declared that he's now going independent. So what is the effect of Dan going independent for the win of Newton Karish? Do you think Newton Karish is still going to maintain the win if Dan Mbui, who feels like the DCP has betrayed him, decides to go independent?
Well, by going independent, it means that he will get his own votes. We saw the Mizani votes, Mizani polls the other day. And clearly, Karish was leading with a very huge margin. I know it was underplayed to look like it was a small margin, but the margin is so big. If you, yes, it was around 41 point, and the other one was 33. If you look at that margin, it is actually downplayed. This is a guy who sells agendas. He does not issue money to the constituency for in return to getting elected. But if you look at the other side, you find a government candidate who has a lot of money to dish out, and they are counting on the money to win the election. And well, Kenyans are bright right now. People will take the money, eat the money, but at the end of the day, they will vote with their brain and their hearts.
AJ, to what extent is it beneficial for the government to front a candidate in a playground that they are very sure they are likely to lose?
Well, number one, we all have to agree that this election, this by-election, in fact, not only in Berg, but the entire nation generally, they are local elections, but they are going to amplify themselves to national politics. And it is going to be a ground testing moment for 2027 for different political parties. And right now, this one is one of a kind, because we want to see really if the DCP party, being the gatekeeper on those other side, will finally demonstrate that indeed we have this as one of our strongholds. So when it comes to nominating candidates to take part in any election, there are so many means that a political party can use. And the law allows them, the Political Parties Act, and even the internal party rules, that you can even do direct nomination. So I cannot say that giving particular candidates direct nomination is problematic in any way. It could have its own problem politically, but legally and even as far as internal party democracy is concerned, that is okay. Now, politically, of course, if you don't make your decisions based on statistics and kusikiza ground, and as it is popularly said, then you're likely to lose, because when you go for a weaker candidate and leave a strong candidate, you lose at the end of the day. However, that is again is likely not to play. And again, the record that my good friend is talking about, that a particular candidate has done well, has developed the area, gave good policies, I don't think again that is going to play. Because this is national politics that is going to reduce itself to local level. It is about, I want to prove that I command this area. And the government is also going to try and speak that no matter what, we still have our roots here. So at the end of the day, you will see people from the national angle coming to the local ground to campaign. And this politics is going to outgrow the individual candidates that are vying in this particular constituencies because of national interest.
National interests. It is a very live political scene, and we might not comment on it much until it comes to an end. But all eyes are on Mbeere North, whether the government is going to win on a position that was previously held by the DP party that was also in government, or is the Mbeere North going to disintegrate themselves from the government right now and rally behind their man and behind Newton Karish as a representation of the Democratic Party. We are here at the Civic Lens, and we'll take a look at that. On our last story today, and this is not really political, but this is a platform of politics, law, and economy. There's a story that the wage bill of Kenya right now has hit half the entire revenue that we collect. We collect around 2.57 trillion annually. And right now, 1.25 goes into payment of salaries. What this means is that the money that is being left for development is very minimal. It also means that the job opportunity is packed without more employment opportunity, able to be created. But it means this, that the government will now rely largely on debt to sustain itself or even promote development. I'm having this discussion with a lawyer and an economist, and I just want to pick up their minds on this, the rising wage bill and its effect on the Kenyan economy. AJ, the last time you told us that economy is working, that the minister, the CS Treasury are saying the economy is working. Now, what's your comment on this rise on wage bill?
Number one, we have to appreciate that we have two levels of government in this country. We have the national government, then we have the county government. Our financial policies basically is, we have two ways. Now, this is addressing this from an economist point of view. We have our fiscal policies and we have our monetary policies. These policies, of course, there are those that we have just been putting in, day out, without really looking at them and see whether really they are the best fit for an economy such as ours. So while I said the other time that economy is working, and I'll say how, on this issue of wage bill, I think it is one thing that we really need to relook at so that we see how we can open the economy to allow development, because wage bill is a key hindrance to development, because it has what in economics we refer to as crowding effect. So it crowds out development and even other sectors that would also want funds for them to work, like health sector, school or rather education, among others, because it is technically difficult to avoid paying employees in this government department and at the same time ask them to go and take part in development. This is how it happened. County government, for example, has had problems. People castigate county government that county government is not developing. I look at how much is being disbursed to county government, and again you look at how many months that the employees at the county level have waited to get their salaries. So you have the exchequer giving them funds, but there are employees at the county level who are waiting for 3 months' salary. Will you pay the employees or you go and do the development? It is sensible to pay the employees so that they feel better off, and after which now you consider development, because they have to be the supervisors of those development. So that is one problem that we face as a country. So that the wage bill has put a burden both at the national level and at the county level. And despite the law being clear that let us, as a matter of practice and prudent use of resources, let us only commit 35% of our national revenue to the wage bill. But that is not taking place. And in this one, I equally believe that this needs to be reviewed so that if we can review our wage bill, but mark you, the moment you review the wage bill and you say you are going to retrench certain individuals from government, what is going to happen to employment? Those people are going basically to be unemployed at the end of the day. So for me, I would be of the school of thought that let us find other avenues of raising more fund so that we retain those that are already there, so that we expand our sources of income. The law allows us that you get it through the collection of revenue and even also public debt financing, which again there is a lot of debate about that as a country we are not doing well in terms of what we borrow. Why? Because when you borrow, you are supposed to borrow to help escalate development, but that is not happening. Part of these borrowed funds end up paying employees. Very fast. The other time I was saying we are doing well. When the inflation rises in a country, what is the meaning of the same? To some, it would appear that, okay, inflation is going high, so that literally means the country is doing badly. But that, from an economist point of view, is not the case.
Now, let us zoom our lenses in this one. AJ wants to tell us that when money loses value, that from the economics point of view does not mean that the country is doing bad. Let's listen to this.
When the inflation goes high, and you want to contradistinguish that with unemployment, because you're saying the economy, the inflation is going high, what happens to unemployment? Those two variables in economics can never go towards the same direction. Meaning, if the unemployment is going high, meaning so many people are not employed, isn't it? That is what it literally means. then the inflation is supposed to go down. But when you see the inflation is going high, then the unemployment is supposed to go down. It literally means so many people are being absorbed into the employment system. And how is that done? It means factors of production that brings people into the employment are actually enabled, and they are now absorbing people. And that actually what informs me that we are doing well in terms of economy. And more about this, there is a concept in economics called the Phillips curve, which explains that anyone who cares to read would actually find that.
This is interesting. An aspect where inflation is going high, but employment, not unemployment, employment is also going high. And it says an instance where both inflation is going high and employment is going high, then the economy is doing fine. And that is his explanation on what he said last week, that the economy is doing fine. Let's pick what clears Ronnie's mind on the current wage bill and its effect, and what is the alternative for getting more money so that more jobs can be created.
The economy is doing terribly. And that actually reflects on the amount of money in the pocket of a Kenyan. People are sleeping hungry. What he's talking about are macroeconomics. They are looking at the bigger picture. But the reality on the ground is that people are sleeping hungry. When we talk about the wage bill, this government has deliberately made the wage bill to go up, failed to pay people deliberately, and at the same time brought on board people who get paid on a routine basis. And I'm saying this looking at the Green Army in Nairobi. These are people who are contracted by the government. We have seen even the national agencies coming on board and just appreciating these people. And these are people who are paid once they have delivered their work. On the other side, if you look at the employees of the same county that is paying the people of the Green Army, you'll find that they have stayed for over 3 months without being paid. If you look at the national government, you'll see that they have resorted to overtaxation to raise more resources and revenue. What this means is that the disposable income of mwananchi has gone very low. And this directly translates to businesses, because if my disposable income has reduced, I will have to reduce my expenditure. I will have to look for subsidy goods and things like that. So if you look at businesses and households, you find that they are all suffering because of the government's deliberate action to overtax people, to bring more people on board to do these daily routine jobs and investing a lot of resources on them for the mere fact that they want to be used to win the next election. So I feel that the government has lost its place. It needs to go back to default settings.
Weekly recap at the Civic Lense weekly showcases expertise discussion between Wakili Jesse Seruni and Advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Wakili Akude Jura. I'm your host, Ogola, and at this level, we want to take the parting shots of these two individuals to crown the week with their recap today. I'll start with Seruni. What's your weekly recap? What's your take today?
Well, I want to encourage everyone to be watchful. You see, the IBC has started organizing itself. Voter registration drive will begin very soon. So people should be very watchful, be very aware. Let us keep it in mind that we need to register as many people as possible. Everyone needs to register as a voter. If you are of age, you need to register as a voter so that at least you can get your voice heard. You can express yourself. We cannot let other people decide who will rule this country. As the young people of this country, we need to come out, talk to each other, inform policies, sit in those positions so that at least we can lead this country together with people who are willing. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. That is Wakili Sarun's take, that we have an opportunity now to actually contribute to policies and to have our voices heard. And the only way to do that is to make a better start. At this juncture, I want to listen to the take of the advocate of the High Court of Kenya, AJ. What's your take?
Yes, for me, I would say this, that we have faith that victims of post-election violence will finally get justice, and one of the means through it they will get that is through compensation. And we have faith in our very own president, faith that our presence and involvement in the process will finally guarantee accountability and transparency that the people of Kenya have desired to see in those kind of task forces. And coming from the good reputation that she has built, let us focus on that as opposed to focusing on negativities. You know, they say it is always good thing that when you want to tell someone his mistakes, it is also fair you tell the person good things that he has done. And that, I believe, is found in the 1 Minute Manager. There is a book called 1 Minute Manager. I encourage our viewers to read that book and apply the same principles in how they judge our faith.
As most Kenyans are losing faith on faith of Odhiambo, here the Civic Lense has asked us to restore our faith on faith. And we are closing our episode today at the weekly recap at that. As most Kenyans are losing faith on faith, here the Civic Lense, Ajura J has asked us to restore our faith on faith of Odhiambo and to tell her the good deeds that she has done, even as we call her on this one that we believe is not a good deed. But we still believe on their capability and Irungu Boston to walk into that task force and live up to their reputation. Here at the Civic Lens today, we have recapped the save of Sakaja, the appointment of Faith Odhiambo, and the task forces that Ruto is using. We have also discussed the way to win the United Opposition and the self-declaration coming from the chapter. We have looked at Mbeere North, and we have concluded today's episode with an extensive and educative part of the wage bill from both Ajura here and GSS. My name is Ogola, and this is